Hey, and welcome to The Better Drummer with Zach Covington. I'm Zach Covington. Today we're going to talk about how to practice with the metronome. Now, this lesson is sort of aimed towards the beginner to intermediate student who knows that they need to practice with the metronome, but are not really sure how or why or how to do it efficiently or effectively. Before we get into the video, I want you to download my free guide down below, Open Your Ears to the Metronome, which is a PDF to follow along with this video. It'll give you all of the stuff we're going to talk about today with written out, notated examples, as well as a little bit more in-depth text to the concepts that we're going to talk about. One of the biggest problems I see with my students is that they don't have their ears open to the metronome. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, they're listening, but they're not actively listening to the metronome. And there's a big difference between those two. An exercise that we can practice to sort of turn our ears on to the metronome is just clapping on the downbeat. 1, 2, ready. Now, as we do this, we want to be aiming right for that downbeat every single time. Whoops. And we want to make sure that we're thinking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And in my head right now, I'm actually counting eighth notes. So right now, the metronome is giving us quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, but I'm thinking eighth notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 and keep doing that. 3, 4, 2 more times. 2 more times now. Last time. 3 and 4 and. So again, the goal with that exercise is to really get our ears turned on and tuned into the metronome instead of just having it be on in the background, right? It's a sort of simple exercise, but it trains our brain to really be dialed in to landing that clap right with the downbeat. The next exercise we can do with that same concept, clapping, is just clapping on 2 and 4. So let's do that now. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Really focus on subdividing those eighth notes and trying to line those claps up right with the beat. See if you can notice if you're getting ahead or behind of the metronome. That one was just ahead. 1, 2. That one was behind. That one's ahead. Last bar. When we clap on 2 and 4, we get a little bit different sense of the feel of that measure instead of just clapping on the downbeats. So now we're sort of venturing into that pop or rock groove territory where we're actually thinking about playing a beat, which is exactly what the next exercise is. Now just putting that basic groove with our kick and snare along with those quarter notes. So putting the kick on 1 and 3, and the snare on 2 and 4. Again, I know you know how to do this. The goal is really having your ears be open to the metronome the whole time. So about every bar, every measure, I want you to check in with yourself. I want you to think, am I listening to the metronome as you're doing this? Am I listening to the metronome? Am I listening to the metronome? Am I in line with the metronome? Is my kick ahead? Is my snare ahead? Is either of them behind? And this is going to continually train your brain to be thinking always about the metronome. So let's do this exercise now. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. So practice that exercise. You could even practice just the kick drum on 1 and 3 and just the snare drum on 2 and 4 to really get more dialed in and specific understanding of where your kick and snare line up in that measure at that tempo, which right now is 80 beats a minute. The next step after we have that kick and snare is to add our hi-hat in with eighth notes. So 1 and 2. Let's do some of those just by themselves, just eighth notes on the hi-hat. And we'll get those really dialed into the metronome. Really, again, asking ourselves, like every measure, am I listening? Am I listening? Am I listening? Am I ahead? Am I behind? Am I listening? Am I right with it? Am I listening? That's the sort of internal dialogue I want us to have, especially while we're creating this habit. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Last bar. Now, let's put that together with the kick and the snare to create that basic rock groove, which I'm sure you know how to play very well. Again, the goal being, am I with the metronome? 1, 2, 3, 4. One thing you can do with that exercise is to video yourself with the metronome playing out loud somehow, and you can see where your beats line up with that metronome and see if you're constantly maybe ahead on beat 3 on the kick, or maybe your beat 2 on the snare drum is really pushed forward for some reason. And that gives you an idea of, oh, I'm consistently ahead on beat 2. Then you try it again, try and pull that back, and then you can see your progress of how in time you are with the metronome. The last exercise that I want us to do is we're going to play that groove we were just doing. Now we're going to add some fills in. Now, the goal of this part is, again, that we're playing our fills in time. So I'm going to limit myself to just playing eighth notes and quarter notes. What that's going to do is make sure that my quarter notes and my eighth notes are staying right in time with the metronome and not pushing or dragging. So I highly recommend that you limit yourself to just eighth notes in your fills. No 16th notes, no 30 seconds, no other stuff, right? Keep it simple because the goal is to practice the fundamentals and to practice them slowly and efficiently and effectively so that you have a good baseline to build off of. So let's play that groove, and we'll do a fill every 4 bars. The fill can be a whole bar, it could be 2 beats, it could be 3 beats, it can be 1 beat, it can be whatever you want it to be, with the goal being keeping it in time. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I know I cheated and played some 16th notes in that last measure, but after being so focused on just eighths and quarter notes, I figured it was okay for me to reward myself with some 16th notes. So those are the exercises that will give your ears brand new life when it comes to the metronome. Once you have unlocked this skill, the world is your oyster, really, when it comes to metronomic practice. You can use this skill set in so many different ways to practice with the metronome in so many different ways. And this concept carries through all of your playing, whether it's playing jazz or rock or funk or fusion, whatever the style of music is. All of this is super beneficial. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked what you saw today, hit that like button and the subscribe button, as I put out a new video every Friday, or at least I try to. And that helps me feed my 100 cats. Thanks again, and I'll see you when you're a better drummer.